for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses today. The wrecking ball of right-wing authoritarianism is swinging right through Congress and coming directly at the freedoms of the press and the people right now. The self-appointed CEO of this operation is the unelected bureaucrat and aspiring techno-dictator Elon Musk, who Steve Bannon calls a truly evil individual, trying to create a techno-state in which he's king and most of us are reduced to the status of serfs. Break things and break things fast, Steve Bannon says, is Musk's MO. De facto President Musk and his nocturnal Doge Muscovite Youth Brigade have now taken control of dozens of federal computer databases in order to dismantle entire federal agencies and programs that we in Congress created and funded with appropriations to keep our people safe and secure and healthy. Just this week, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the agency that lowered overdraft fees from $38 to $5 and cut credit card late fees from an average of $32 to $8 for American consumers, saving us billions of dollars. An agency that has actually stopped corporate ripoff artists from stealing $21 billion from us, got a stop work order from Elon Musk. The billionaire plutocrats want to dismantle the EPA, which protects our air and water, and the NIH, which promotes life-saving scientific and medical research. Yesterday, Donald Trump banned the Associated Press, a 179-year-old newspaper organization, from the White House because it declines to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. This is straight-up press censorship based on retaliatory viewpoint discrimination. Trump's DOD kicked out 8 news groups that had space in the Pentagon, but which asked skeptical questions of the new secretary, including the New York Times, NBC News, and the Washington Post, all ousted in favor of outlets willing to faithfully advance the party line of the state, like Breitbart and One American News Network. Mr. Chairman, I despair sometimes when I reflect how far this war on representative democracy and the rights of the press and the people has already gone and how far it might go. But then, Mr. Chairman, I confess I think about you. I think about you because you and I, a MAGA Republican, a conservative Republican, and a liberal Democrat, have always shared a common commitment to the First Amendment. This gives me hope. As you've put it, quote, the First Amendment is first for a reason. Without it, we cannot enjoy our other liberties. So I tell myself that if things got really bad here, if we began to look more like Orban's illiberal democracy in Hungary, or Putin's Russia, where journalists end up in prison for their writings, and young people are jailed for expressing anti-war sentiments, and opposition leaders like Alexei Navalny are poisoned and die mysteriously in jail, or Kim Jong-un's North Korea, or Xi's China, authoritarian dictatorships where all must worship the orders of the dear deified leader, I will call upon you as a colleague, Chairman Jordan, whom I have known to work seriously across the aisle sometimes, to come defend political freedom in America. These are dark times, but in the past we've agreed strongly on the fundamental importance of free speech, free press, the right to assemble, the right to petition for redress of grievances, free exercise of religion, and no establishment of a state religion. I'm proud that you and I worked together to move the Press Act, which passed this committee unanimously and the House by voice vote last Congress, to protect reporters against compulsory disclosure of their sources and their notes. And you supported my resolution against blasphemy laws around the world used to torment Christians, Hindus, Muslims, and free thinkers everywhere. We have clashed vigorously, and we no doubt will continue to do so through this very difficult period. But forgive me if I quote Abraham Lincoln, the great founder of your party, who said, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break the bonds of affection." I hope we can call on these bonds if Elon Musk or anyone else in the executive branch seeks to destroy our constitutional freedoms and the powers of Congress. Although this hearing has been arranged to belabor a rather tiresome point that has been made ad nauseum for the last several years, it actually gestures at an important issue, specifically whether social media platforms like Meta and X should be treated as common carriers and pushed to be open to all speakers and all content, regardless of how dangerous or extreme or false it may be, or whether they should be seen as private speakers who have their own freedom to exclude any content that violates their own policies, the way that newspapers and TV stations do. It's a fascinating problem, but it's clear as a matter of law that there are private entities, that these are private entities and speakers who control their own speech, despite the fact that they are protected by Section 230, which immunizes them from liability for other people's defamation and fraud and other criminal and tortious communications posted on their platforms. The status of 230 is something we've discussed that we should seriously examine in a thoughtful way. Since the internet has clearly gotten off the ground and doesn't need this kind of subsidy anymore. But what I insist upon is that we be consistent in our treatment of the tech giants. You pushed them hard, Mr. Chairman, to remove objective fact-checking and to let all of the extreme right-wing forces get back on the internet. You pushed for an absolute and wide-open market in speech. But then you should push them equally hard not to censor dissenting viewpoints, whether they come from the anti-immigration wing of the MAGA movement, like Steve Bannon or Laura Loomer, who says she has been shadow banned on X by Elon Musk, or from the populist left, as when Musk purged his platform of journalists critical of him and other accounts critical of him back in 2022. Even one of your own witnesses today, Mr. Taibbi, was privately censored or de-amplified by Elon Musk, and I assume must walk on eggshells now in order not to get kicked off of that platform. But I'll be interested to hear what he says about it. If you use our congressional bully pulpit to stand up for the rights of extreme right-wing speakers on these private platforms, you should stand up for the rights of anti-Musk speakers to be on that platform too. But right now, the issue is this. We face a profound First Amendment crisis in the actions taken by this administration. One of my constituents who's serving in the armed forces, Mr. Chairman, alerted me this past Friday to book bans by the government at their kids' Department of Defense school, where they're closing the library for a week to complete a purge of books that appear to offend the new government orthodoxy against DEI and gender ideology. That's fine if you hate those ideologies, whatever you think they are, but this is naked content and viewpoint censorship of books. I hope you would join me in denouncing the purge of books, the stripping of books from the Department of Defense libraries or any other public libraries in America or for American citizens. When this father saw a school official removing not just books, but posters of Susan B. Anthony and Dr. King, my constituent asked why they left up the poster of Leonardo da Vinci, and he was told that's a real historical figure. More sweepingly, Trump and his FCC are using their powers to investigate, sue, and threaten news groups that dare to criticize the administration. Trump is suing CBS for $20 billion in damages because, check this out, he believes an interview with Kamala Harris produced too favorable an impression of her. So that means that I could sue Fox News because I think their interviews with Trump produce too favorable an impression of him. I mean, this is lunacy. And now, exploiting his asserted unitary executive powers, Trump is unleashing his sycophant FCC chairman Brendan Carr on every news group whose stories he doesn't approve of, actually threatening to pull the government broadcast licenses for ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, and NPR. Nothing of a hostile nature, of course, has taken place against Fox News, which is now the de facto state-approved media, enjoys immunity from the repression visited on its liberal competitors. What is this, North Korea? It reminds me of the treatment of Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former private lawyer, who worked for Trump for more than a decade and became deputy finance chairman of the RNC. He went to jail for Donald Trump for, among other things, lying to Congress and making unlawful corporate contributions in the Stormy Daniels cover-up affair. When Cohen was released from prison during COVID to home arrest and probation, with an ankle bracelet. He was abruptly rearrested and taken back to prison when he refused to sign a statement saying he would not speak to the media or publish a book about Donald Trump. Everybody's got to hear this. He was thrown into solitary confinement where he remained until a United States District Court judge found this to be a clear First Amendment violation and an outrage and freed him immediately. What is this? Castro's Cuba? Putin's Russia? The free speech violations taking place now against Department of Justice prosecutors and FBI agents are equally astounding. The First Amendment forbids reprisal and punishment against professional government employees for political reasons. Yet Trump has fired and demoted dozens of federal prosecutors, many of whom he had appointed during his first administration simply for doing their jobs, including prosecuting January 6 violators. Trump's subordinates also asked for a roundup of information about more than 6,000 hardworking FBI agents who were assigned to work the January 6 probe, a dangerous, blatantly unconstitutional order which was enjoined by a U.S. District Court in a case brought by the Association of FBI Agents. The administration is attempting to do its work. I'm about to finish up, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I see a lot of pages there. I was just wondering.
Yeah, I'm going to speak fast like you. Watch me do it, all right? Look, this is happening in secret. They're keeping the press, the Congress, and people in the dark. I know you feel strongly about government transparency, as you do about free speech. The administration's illegally fired 17 inspectors general, totally violating the statute which says they've got to come to Congress first 30 days before they fire them and set forth the specific explanation for why that's happening. Now, finally, you and I are both fierce advocates for the First Amendment and government transparency. Both of us see in the First Amendment a right that protects everybody without regard to viewpoint, substance, or politics of the message. And if we stand up strong for the First Amendment, if we defend not just the speech we agree with, which is easy, but the speech we oppose, which is hard, then we will be constitutional patriots and we will protect a truly free society. When we together introduced our Free Flow of Information Act, you said all rights protected in the First Amendment need to be defended. We had real success. Let's work together again to end the attacks on news organizations, to demand transparency from the administration, and to allow every American to exercise his or her free speech without being intimidated, harassed, or prosecuted. Thank you, and I yield back.
Without objection, all of their opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witnesses. Mr. Matt